the one piece of advice that you wish somebody had given you when you were starting out in your career?
So for me, I was always conscious of how much I know, and the idea of not knowing something always felt like something I should be ashamed of. Especially when you're one of the newer developers in a team, you always, you don't want to let people know that, oh, you haven't heard of this concept that they mentioned so flippantly. So for me, yeah, the fact that not knowing something is okay. And in fact, rather than try to hide that you don't know something, actually just openly talk about it and say, hey, sorry, can you stop there? Can you explain to me what you were talking about? Because, I hadn't heard of that before, or that doesn't make sense to me. And, I found quite often that can help you grow, as a developer. If that other person is far more experienced than you, they might offer to take you through it later if it's too long to explain in a moment. Or it might be something that you had heard of and did know about. And in fact, the next 20 minutes of the meeting will make a lot more sense than you can contribute, more readily, more helpfully to that meeting. On the flip side though, not knowing something is okay, but not learning about something, for me, I don't feel that's okay. If you've heard about something and you don't at least find out what it is, that's always going to put you on a back foot if you don't, because it might be that, oh, you got away with this at this time, and maybe it won't come up again, but it always does. And even if it isn't something that's critical to what you're working on, if people you're working with know about something, you should at least know what they're talking about. That goes, that obviously applies within technology, but even to other teams, if you're talking to a sales team and they're talking about metrics they have to hit, it can be helpful to know, what those metrics are, or why, or, what their targets are, because then you can understand where they're coming from when they talk to you. That's what it would be.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your career that's made a significant impact?
I mean, the answer to this is almost no. But I can think of one example. I wouldn't say it made a significant impact on my career as a whole, but it's almost in line with what we were talking about earlier. But when I was back at Fairfax working on the Australian Financial Review, we had this project where we were scaling our team from a team of 4 or 5 team members, developers, to a team of over 20, 25 in a matter of weeks. And obviously for any manager, that's a pretty daunting task, right? And it got to this point where we started saying, actually, our Scrum processes, the ones we've been talking about and think are the bee's knees, just aren't working. And the way we kind of got through it is this: it's almost like a low-tech solution to a problem. But I came up with this test I call the eye glaze test, which sounds very complicated and maybe a little bit delicious. But it was almost like, you go into a meeting about your Scrum or your work, whatever you're doing, and if more than like a few people have their eyes glazed over, then you have to change it. You have to at least have a chat about, why is this meeting boring? What do we need to change? Should we not have this meeting? Should we cut more people out of this meeting? And we'll talk about it later. And we ended up, with that, and it sounds like a really simple test and like a silver bullet, but it requires a bit more than that. But at least starting with that, we were able to say, okay, this is where we're at now. It's not working. What should we change? And from there, how you change, you take inputs from a lot of places. You can, do it from reading, or you can do it from talking to team members, or even managers or mentors or whatever, and you sort of arrive at a new solution to the problem. You try it again, and every meeting you're just constantly saying, anyone in the meeting can say, hey, half the people here are not paying attention. Let's talk about this, and let's change it. And yeah, it's incredibly effective. It's really just an engagement metric that you should just be paying attention to in some ways, but it's really easy to forget. You get into the throes of meetings, and you just assume that they are what they are, and it's important to take a step back and say, actually, this can change. So for me, the reason I say it was pivotal is because it was very much a way of challenging the status quo, of saying, well, are we here to do a Scrum thing as it's phrased on the tin, or are we here to be engaged and work together towards a solution and try and solve this problem? And for us, it was very much the latter, and it really helped us solve a lot of those problems. And in a way, we trimmed a lot of the fat of meetings and things like that, so people would get on with the work that they were actually really motivated to solve. So yeah, for me, it was pretty pivotal. Challenging the status quo, I suppose, is what you'd sum it up as.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life, and what's your go-to strategy for overcoming them?
It's tricky. It also depends on the type of setback. There's always a case of you can sit there and figure out what went wrong. I think the professional term is post-incident review, when there's an incident or something, but it can be anything, right? Like, you might not have got a role that you wanted, or I don't know, your team didn't hit their targets, whatever it is, whether it's personal or not, individual or not, I should say. For me, it's always a case of reviewing what it was. Now, I think most people will look back on what happened and try and figure out what went wrong. I find that, writing down the list of things that you think went wrong personally can help. But I also find that then speaking to other people about that and figuring it out on an individual, on a one-to-one, but also as a group basis, if it's a team problem, can be really helpful. There's a lot of, the people you work with, your team members, even people you have worked with or maybe studied with, they can often provide their own views, their own wisdom for this kind of thing. So yeah, I've found even stuff that might be a team failure, and I use failure in the best sense of the word there, I suppose. But yeah, I find sometimes I'll speak to people at other, colleagues from past roles or university, or even people in different professions. They can often provide a lot of insight. My wife's a teacher. She's a very good teacher, actually, and she, a lot of management conversations I have with her, she's able to provide a lot of academic insight actually into them, and there are a lot of ways that you approach teaching and things like that are really closely tied with management. So yeah, sometimes just speaking to other people with different backgrounds can be really helpful.